The rope snapped taut around my waist like a noose, yanking me back from the sheer drop just as my boot slipped on the rain-slicked granite. Below, the Rocky Mountains plunged into a misty abyss that swallowed screams whole, and in that split second I locked eyes with Ethan. His face pale, hands trembling on the belay line, whispering, "Hold on, Jake. Don't you dare let go." But it wasn't the fall that terrified me. It was the secret he'd just confessed in the thunderclap before. The one that shattered everything I thought I knew about us. I'd always figured college was where you'd find your people, the ones who saw through the bullshit and stuck around for the raw parts. At 22, studying environmental science at CU Boulder, I was still piecing together who that Jake guy even was, out to a handful of friends back home in Denver, but mostly just navigating the quiet ache of wanting more without the noise of judgment. Ethan Hayes crashed into my orbit sophomore year. All easy grins and that effortless Colorado cool, like he'd been born with a snowboard under one arm and a trail map in his pocket. He was the guy who led our outdoor ed class on these godforsaken hikes, the one whose laugh cut through the wind like it owned the peaks. Straight as an arrow, or so everyone assumed, girls fawning over him in the quad, him politely dodging with that boyish shrug. Me? I kept my distance, admiring from afar because crushes like that were landmines, and I wasn't about to step on one. That spring, Professor Harlan announced the annual class expedition. A 3-day trek through Rocky Mountain National Park, mapping erosion patterns along the Continental Divide. Team up, she barked in her no-nonsense drawl, or hike solo and regret it. The room buzzed with pairings, nerds with jocks, locals with out-of-staters, until Ethan slid into the seat next to me, his knee brushing mine under the desk. "Partners?" he asked, like it was the most natural thing, his blue eyes crinkling at the edges. My heart did that stupid flip, but I played it cool. "Sure. As long as you don't mind my impeccable sense of direction." He chuckled low and warm, and just like that we were locked in. Prep was a whirlwind. Gear checks in the campus outfitter, late-night texts about topo maps and bear spray. Ethan lived off-campus in a cramped A-frame cabin up in Nederland, the kind of place with elk antlers on the walls and a wood stove that smelled like pine and possibility. We'd cram there sometimes, poring over satellite images by lamplight. His dog Max, a lanky mutt with one floppy ear, sprawled at our feet. Those nights blurred the lines for me. His stories about growing up in a ranch town near Steamboat Springs, the way he'd talk about his dad's old guitar or his little sister's soccer games, it all felt like peeking behind a curtain. "You're easy to talk to, Jake," he'd say, tossing me a beer from the mini-fridge. "Like you've got this quiet strength." I'd flush, mutter something about the mountains teaching you that, but inside it was fireworks. The drive up to the trailhead was electric, our Subaru rattling over washboard roads as spring snowmelt roared in the gullies below. The class, 15 of us, a mix of wide-eyed freshmen and grizzled seniors, piled out at the Bear Lake parking lot, the air crisp with that high-altitude bite that makes your lungs sing. Ethan shouldered both our packs, ever the gentleman, and we fell into step on the Emerald Lake Trail, boots crunching over residual ice. Conversation flowed like the stream beside us. Debates on climate models, his teasing about my city boy gripes over elevation gain. By midday, we'd crested Nymph Lake, the water a mirror of sapphire under the relentless sun, and the group splintered for lunch. Ethan and I claimed a flat rock overlooking the drop, sharing jerky and trail mix while the others snapped selfies. That's when it shifted. He leaned back on his elbows, squinting at the horizon where Long's Peak loomed like a sentinel. "You ever feel like you're faking it, Jake? Like out here it's all real, the sweat, the views, but back in Boulder it's this performance." His voice was casual, but there was an edge, a vulnerability I'd never heard. I paused, apple slice halfway to my mouth. "All the time," I admitted, thinking of the bars I'd skip, the dates I'd ghost because the risk felt too high. "Like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop." He nodded slow, then met my gaze. "Yeah, exactly." The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken things, until he cracked a smile. "Race you to the next ridge?" And we were off, laughing as we scrambled, the moment tucked away like a found feather in my journal. Night 1 camped us at a sheltered site near Dream Lake. The group huddled around a crackling fire as stars punched holes in the velvet sky. Ethan and I pitched our tent side by side, the nylon whispering secrets in the breeze. Dinner was freeze-dried chili that tasted like regret, but washed down with stories. It hit the spot. Sarah from hydrology cornered me later, her eyes twinkling. You two are adorable. Like rom-com vibes. I laughed it off. Nah, just bros surviving the wild. But her words lodged like a thorn. Adorable. If only she knew how badly I wanted it to be true. As the fire died to embers, Ethan zipped open our tent flap and crawled in. His silhouette gilded by the glow. We unrolled sleeping bags inches apart, the space between us humming. Cold one, he murmured, offering a flask from his pack. Something amber and illicit smuggled past the prof's eagle eyes. We passed it back and forth, the burn chasing away the chill, words tumbling easier in the dark. He talked about his family, the pressure to take over the ranch, how it felt like a script he hadn't auditioned for. And then there's other stuff, he said, voice dropping. Stuff I don't tell anyone. My pulse thrummed. Like what? A beat. Like how I'm not who they think I am. The flask froze in my hand. He wasn't looking at me, just tracing patterns on the tent ceiling. Ethan. I started, but he cut in soft. I'm gay, Jake. Have been since forever. But out there, it's easier to pretend. The world tilted. Gay. Ethan Hayes, the golden boy, the one every girl whispered about, was like me. Relief flooded in, hot and dizzying, followed by a rush of what-ifs. Why now? I whispered, our breaths mingling in the confined space. He shrugged, a ghost of a smile. Because you're safe. Because this trip. It's like a reset. We didn't touch. Not yet. But that confession bridged the gap, turning the night into something sacred. I lay awake long after his snores started, staring at the mesh window where the Milky Way spilled like spilled milk, wondering if this was the start of us or just a high-altitude hallucination. Day 2 dawned brutal. A storm front rolling in from the west, gray clouds bruising the sky as we pushed toward Flattop Mountain. The trail steepened, switchbacks clawing up scree fields where loose rocks skittered underfoot like warnings. Ethan led, his pace steady, calling back encouragements that kept me going through the burn in my quads. Almost there, views worth it. By noon we hit the saddle, wind howling like a banshee, the divide stretching out in jagged glory. Tundra meadows fading to endless forest, the air electric with ozone. The class hooped, high-fiving amid the gale, but Ethan pulled me aside to a windbreak of boulders, his hand lingering on my arm. Thanks for last night, he said, eyes searching mine. For not freaking. I swallowed. Never would. You're you. Our fingers brushed, a spark jumping the gap, and for a heartbeat I thought he'd lean in. But then the hail started, pebbles of ice stinging like accusations, and we bolted for cover, the moment dissolving into chaos. Huddled under tarps, the group traded ghost stories to kill time, laughter brittle against the thunder. Ethan sat close, our shoulders touching, his warmth the anchor in the squall. When the skies cracked open for real, Professor Harlan called it early descent to avoid flash floods. Stick to your pairs, she yelled over the din. We geared up, rain sheeting down in silver rods, turning the path to mudslide. That's when it happened, the betrayal I never saw coming. We were midway down, visibility nil, when Ethan's voice cut through the roar. Jake, wait, loose footing. I turned, too late. My trail runner caught an exposed root, and I pitched sideways toward the embankment. The drop wasn't sheer there, but steep enough, 20 feet of tumbled shale to a churning creek below. Instinct kicked in. I clawed for purchase, fingers scraping granite, but gravity won. Then the rope, our safety line, clipped casual for the traverse, jerked me short, Ethan's belay holding firm. I dangled, heart slamming, mud caking my face as I looked up. He was there, braced against a pine, hauling with everything he had, his face a mask of terror. I've got you, he shouted, but his words cracked on the edge of something else. Guilt? No, not then. In the strain as lightning forked the sky, he gasped it out. I kissed Sarah last week. To shut down the rumors. But it's you, Jake, it's always been you. The world narrowed to that confession, the rope biting my harness like truth's own bite. Kissed Sarah. To cover. For us? Or for him? I hauled myself up, legs shaking, collapsing beside him in the deluge. Why tell me now? I rasped, rain mixing with the salt on my cheeks. Not from the fall, but from the ache blooming fresh. He cupped my face, thumbs rough from calluses, eyes fierce. Because I can't pretend anymore. Not with you. His lips crashed into mine then, desperate and tasting of storm and secrets, the world fading to the thunder of my pulse. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, the hail a distant drum. "Promise me," I whispered. "No more games." He nodded, solemn. "No more." The storm broke as abruptly as it hit, sun piercing the clouds in a rainbow arc over Alberta Falls. We rejoined the group sodden but alive, stolen glances our new language. That night at base camp, under a canopy of lodgepole pines, the fire roared defiance against the damp. Ethan and I volunteered for watch, orbiting the perimeter with headlamps bobbing like fireflies. Away from prying eyes we really talked. About the fear of small-town whispers, the weight of family expectations, the loneliness of half-truths. "My dad's the type who quotes Reagan at dinner," he said, poking at the embers. "Coming out? That's a wildfire I haven't lit yet." I shared my own scars. The high school bully who clocked me after gym. The mom who hugged me tighter after my tearful admission but never spoke of it again. "It's like walking a tightrope without a net," I said. He squeezed my hand. "Then let's build one. Together." By morning the trail called us homeward. The descent of victory lapped through aspen groves turning gold with autumn's teas. The class dispersed at the trailhead, hugs, promises of beers, but Ethan lingered, tossing my pack in the Subaru. "Dinner? My place." His grin was shy, real. I nodded, the Rockies shrinking in the rearview as we drove east, Boulder sprawling like an old friend below. That night in his cabin, Max curled at our feet. We cooked, burnt burgers and laughter, his guitar strumming folk tunes by the firelight. No rush, no labels. Just two guys figuring the map as we went. But life back in the flatlands had teeth. Midterms hit like a freight train, and with them the cracks. Ethan pulled away. Not ghosting but distant texts, canceled hangs. "Family stuff," he'd say, voice clipped on the line. I chalked it up to stress, dove into my own grind, but the doubt gnawed. Then came the party. Harlan's end-of-semester bash at her Victorian off-campus. The air thick with IPA and indie rock. I spotted him across the crowded living room, laughing with Sarah, her hand on his arm, his posture easy in that old way. My stomach twisted. Was it nothing? Or the cover all over again? I nursed a beer in the kitchen, eavesdropping on snippets. "Yeah, Ethan's seeing someone." "Wait, no, it's casual." Sarah's voice light. "Seeing someone." The room spun. When he found me later, flushed from the dance floor, I couldn't hold it. "Who's the someone?" I asked, sharper than intended. His face fell. "Jake, it's not." But the door banged open, Harlan calling shots, and he was swept away. I left early, walking the 3 miles back to my dorm in the chill, the betrayal settling like frost. Days blurred into avoidance. Him in lab, me in the library, the unspoken chasm widening. Finally, I cornered him after class, the hallway empty save for the hum of vending machines. "Talk to me," I demanded, voice breaking. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's my dad. He found out about us. From a photo Sarah posted, us at the trailhead. He flipped. Said if I don't fix this, he's cutting me off. The ranch school, everything." The words landed like punches. Betrayal, not from Ethan, but from the world we'd dared to crack open. "So you're fixing it?" I choked. He stepped close, eyes wet. "No. God, no. I'm telling him to go to hell. For us." We crashed together then in the alcove by the stairs. A fierce hug that said what words couldn't. But the real storm brewed back home. That weekend, Ethan dragged me to Steamboat, a forced family dinner he called it, his knuckles white on the wheel. The ranch house squatted under Yampa Valley stars, a sprawling timber beast with horse trailers rusting in the yard. His dad, Harlan Hayes Sr., greeted us with a bear hug that felt like assessment, his mom fluttering with pie and small talk. Dinner was a minefield. Politics over pot roast, sidelong glances at our untouched beers. Then it detonated. "Heard you've been keeping secrets, son," his dad rumbled, fork pausing midair. Ethan's jaw set. "Not secrets, Dad. Truth." The room iced over. I sat frozen as Ethan laid it bare. Us, the hike, the kiss in the rain. His voice steady, mine thundering in my ears. His mom teared up, whispering prayers. His dad stormed out, slamming the screen door. "You're throwing away everything," he bellowed from the porch. Ethan followed, their shouts echoing across the corrals. I waited inside, heart in my throat, until silence fell. He returned, defeated but unbroken, collapsing beside me on the porch swing. He'll come around. Or he won't. But this, he gestured between us, this is mine. We drove back in the dark, his hand in mine over the console, the Rockies a black silhouette against the dawn. Summer unfurled slow and sweet. Internships in the park service for me, guiding gigs for him. We built routines, mornings tangled in his sheets, evenings on the cabin deck watching thunderstorms roll in. The world tested us. A slur scrawled on his truck, awkward questions from friends. But we weathered it, roots deepening like the cottonwoods along the St. Vrain. One August night, after a brutal day fighting a spot fire near Estes, we hiked to our spot, a hidden overlook above alluvial fan. The debris flow from 84, a testament to nature's fury and renewal. There, under a meteor shower, he dropped to one knee. Not with a ring, but a carved wooden compass, etched with our initials. Not forever yet, he said, grinning through nerves. But direction? Yeah. With you. Tears stung as I pulled him up, our kiss sealing it against the star-strewn sky. Betrayal had forged us. Conflict tempered the blade. But here, in the heart of the Rockies, love was the truest summit. Yet life, that cruel editor, had one more twist. Fall semester brought news. Ethan's dad, sidelined by a ranch accident, a busted leg from a rogue bull, reached out. Not forgiveness but a truce. Come home for Thanksgiving, the letter read, terse but open. Ethan agonized, but we went, the drive tense with what-ifs. The table that year held uneasy peace. His sister's chatter a buffer, his mom's pie a peace offering. His dad grunted approvals over turkey, even asking about my thesis on glacial retreat. As we cleared plates, he pulled Ethan aside, voices low. I waited, breath held, until Ethan emerged, eyes shining. He said, he's proud. In his way. It wasn't fireworks, no tearful embrace, but humanistic as the mountains themselves. Flawed, enduring, carved by time and trial. We left with his mom's hug lingering. The Yampa Valley fading in the mirror. Back in Boulder, snow dusting the flatirons we toasted in the cabin. To shocks that shaped us, to hikes that led home. Ethan's head on my shoulder, Max snoring at our feet. I knew this was it. The story we'd tell our kids someday over campfires of our own. Not perfect but profoundly ours. The winter that followed wrapped Boulder in a hush like no other. Snow blanketing the campus in drifts that muffled footsteps and amplified heartbeats. Ethan and I settled into a rhythm that felt dangerously close to domestic. Him crashing at my dorm when the cabin roads iced over. Me tagging along on his early morning ski patrols up at Eldora. It was the little things that hooked me deeper. The way he'd brew coffee strong enough to wake the dead, leaving my mug steaming on the windowsill. Or how, during study marathons in the Norland stacks, he'd slip notes into my textbooks, doodles of us as cartoon mountaineers, hearts hidden in the peaks. Fuel for the grind, he'd wink and I'd melt, right there amid the dewy decimals. But beneath the glow, shadows lingered. Ethan's truce with his dad was fragile as first ice, cracking under the weight of unspoken expectations. Holiday calls turned curt, laced with barbs about getting serious with the ranch work. As if our life in the foothills was some phase to outgrow. He's trying, Ethan would say, jaw tight after hanging up, but it's like he sees me as the prodigal who's wandered too far. I'd pull him close, murmuring against his temple, you're not wandering. You're home. Yet doubt crept in for me too. Whispers from my own family, my mom on the line from Denver, her voice soft with that maternal probe. When are you bringing someone around, honey? Dad's asking. Bringing someone. As if Ethan were a stray pup, not the man who'd rewired my world. Spring thaw brought renewal, or so we hoped. We signed up for a volunteer gig with the Park Service, trail maintenance on the Glacier Gorge Loop, days spent clearing deadfall and rebuilding switchbacks, nights in a communal yurt with a view of Hallett Peak. The crew was a motley band. Grizzled rangers with stories etched in wrinkles, college kids like us chasing service hours. There, away from cell service and scrutiny, Ethan bloomed. He'd lead chainsaw demos with that infectious energy, sawdust in his hair like confetti, then collapse beside me at the fire pit, his laugh booming over tales of botched cuts and near misses. One evening, as alpenglow painted the basin crimson, he turned to me, firelight dancing in his eyes. This is what I want, Jake. Us out here building something real. I believed him, God I did. But betrayal has a way of circling back, dressed in familiar faces. Midway through the week, a familiar truck rumbled into camp, Sarah, of all people, hauling supplies from town as a favor to Harlan. She hopped out, ponytail swinging, all smiles and bear hugs for the group. Ethan stiffened beside me but played it cool, helping unload crates of immersive tools. "Didn't expect you," he said, voice neutral, but I caught the flicker. The old ease between them, born of shared classes and safer histories. That night, over canned chili, she cornered me by the cooler. "You two are solid, huh? He lights up around you like really." Her words were kind, but they stirred silt. The kiss he'd confessed on the trail, the cover it served. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a grin. "Solid as the divide." Sleep evaded me, the yurt's canvas walls flapping like accusatory flags. I slipped out at dawn, hiking solo to Mills Lake, the water a frozen pane reflecting Chaos Canyon's spires. Footsteps crunched behind. Ethan, thermos in hand, his breath fogging the air. Couldn't sleep either? He sat close, pouring coffee into the lid for me. We sipped in silence, the ice groaning like a warning. Then it spilled. "Sarah. She knows everything. About us, the family drama. Last night, she said my dad called her. Fishing for dirt, seeing if I'd straightened out." Rage flared in my chest, hot and immediate. "Your dad? Using her like that?" Ethan nodded, weary. "It's his way of coping. Control what he can." I set the cup down hard. "And you? What's your way?" The question hung sharp. He reached for my hand. "You. Always you." We kissed there, slow and sealing, the lake cracking applause as the sun crested. Back in Boulder, the incident festered. Ethan's dad escalated, voicemails left on the cabin landline, each more pointed. "Ranch needs you, son. This phase. It's costing us." Ethan deleted them, but they echoed, fraying his focus. Our dates turned tense. A hike to Chautauqua where he snapped at a trail runner for blasting music. Or a movie night derailed by his pacing, phone clutched like a grenade. "Talk to me," I'd plead, but he'd deflect with chores, fixing the wood stove, tuning his truck, anything but the unraveling. I felt it then, the pull of betrayal, not from him, but from the life we'd dared dream, threatening to drag him under. Climax brewed in June, during the solstice full moon. We planned a ritual of sorts. Backpacking to Lone Pine Lake. A midnight swim under the Luna glow, washing away the year's grit. The trailhead at Glacier was mobbed with stargazers, but we outpaced them, headlamps carving tunnels through dusk. At the lake we stripped to boxers, the water-black silk lapping our calves. "To us?" Ethan toasted with a flask of whiskey, his grin fierce. We dove in, whooping as the cold shocked lungs, surfacing to moonbeams silvering our skin. Treading water, arms linked, he grew serious. "Jake, I need to say I'm done hiding. Quitting the ranch gig full-time with the parks. And telling the world about us." Pride swelled, but so did fear. "Your dad. Screw him." He cut in, water droplets beating his lashes. "This is my summit." We emerged shivering, toweling off by the fire we'd kindled, embers mirroring the stars. That's when his phone buzzed, service spotty but insistent, a text from his sister. "Dad's in the hospital. Heart scare. Asking for you." The world grayed. Ethan stared at the screen, color draining. "I have to go." "Alone?" The unspoken hung. "Come with," he said finally, but I saw the fracture, the pull of blood, the weight of legacy. I nodded, but inside the shock loomed. Was this the betrayal's final act, duty claiming what love had staked? The drive to Steamboat was a blur. I-70 a ribbon of taillights under sodium glow. Hospital smells assaulted us. Antiseptic and regret. As we found his dad in a curtained bay, monitors beeping like accusations. Harlan Sr. looked small, tubes snaking his arms, eyes hollow. "Boy," he rasped at Ethan, ignoring me. "You came." Ethan gripped the rail, knuckles white. "Of course." The room thickened with history. His mom's tear-streaked arrival, siblings hovering. I stood sentinel in the hall, eavesdropping fragments, apologies mumbled, futures bartered. Hours later, Ethan emerged, hollowed. "He wants me back. Full-time," says the scare. Changed him. But it's the same ask, Jake. The closet, all over. Betrayal hit like a gut punch. Not his dad's, but the system's, the generational chain that bound even the strong. We crashed at the ranch that night. Guest room stiff with doilies and dust. In the dark, Ethan broke. "I can't lose him. Not now." His whisper was raw, tears hot on my chest. "But I can't lose you." I held him through the sobs, our bodies a bulwark, but dawn brought the chasm. Him at the bedside, me adrift in the barn, stroking the noses of bored horses. By noon decision crystallized, truce extended, Ethan commuting for the summer, us on hold. Just till he's stable, he promised, kissing me fierce in the hayloft. Then we climb back. It was a lie we both swallowed, the shock of separation masked as strategy. Back in Boulder, the apartment we'd half moved into echoed empty. His boots gone from the mat, his flannel from the hook. Texts came sporadic. Miss you. Dad's improving. I threw myself into fieldwork, mapping wetlands near Nederland, the solitude a bomb and a blade. Friends noticed, Sarah bless her, dragging me to trivia nights, her empathy a quiet force. He'll choose you, she said one rainy evening over foe. Love like that doesn't fade. But doubt whispered otherwise, the Rockies mocking from every window. July scorched in, wildfires smoking the horizon. Ethan called less, excuses piling like ash. Ranch duties, hospital runs. One night, post-shift, I drove up unannounced, the cabin dark save for a single light. Inside, he was at the table, map spread, ranch expansions, not our trails. Jake, he started, startled, but the air soured. Staying the night? I asked casual. He hesitated. Can't. Dad's expecting me at dawn. The lie landed soft but cut deep. I left without a fight, tires spinning, gravel, the shock crystallizing. Betrayal wasn't the kiss or the family. It was this slow erosion, love ground down by loyalty's millstone. August brought confrontation, raw as a storm-scoured peak. I waited at the trailhead to our first hike spot, Bear Lake. Dawn mist rising like ghosts. He arrived late, truck rumbling, face haggard. What's this? He asked, slinging his pack. A reminder, I said, voice steel. We climbed in silence, the path a metaphor, switchbacks of tension, crests of truth. At the overlook, wind whipping, I unloaded. You're choosing them. Every delayed text. Every just one more week. It's killing us. He recoiled, then deflated. It's not choice, Jake. It's survival. Dad's dying inside, he needs me. And I don't. The words cracked like thunder. He reached, but I stepped back. Tell him. All of it. Or we're done. The ultimatum hung. A ledge we both teetered on. Days stretched taut. Radio silence my only companion. Then the call, his voice wrecked. He's gone. Aneurysm, quick. Grief swallowed us whole. I drove through the night, finding him at the ranch, folded on the porch steps, whiskey bottle clutched. We mourned in fragments. Funeral under aspen shade. Eulogy stiff with unsaid loves. His mom's hand in mine as we scattered ashes over the river. In the aftermath, Ethan shattered. Drinking too much, skipping classes, the cabin a tomb of takeout boxes. I stayed because love isn't fair weather. It's the gale you brace against. Nights blurred into vigils, me brewing coffee, him staring at the ceiling. He knew. He confessed one dawn, voice hollow. About us. Whispered it before the end. Be happy, son. No fight left. Tears came then, cathartic, and in their wake rebuilding. We hiked again, slow, tentative. Flat top saddle our confessional. I'm sorry, he said, wind tousling his hair. For the pullback. For making you doubt. I nodded, throat tight. Just don't again. Our hands linked, the divide below a scar like ours, jagged but healing. Fall foliage turned the park to fire, mirroring our slow burn. Ethan returned to school, therapy sessions tucked between lectures, his smile creeping back like sunrise. We volunteered together. LGBTQ+ outreach at the rec center, sharing our story in hushed tones to wide-eyed undergrads. It gets better, he'd say, echoing the mantra that had saved us both. But it takes work. Humanistic, yeah, the raw grind of growth, no tidy bows, just two guys, hands clasped, facing whatever peaked next. One crisp November eve, as first snow dusted the cabin roof, Ethan strung lights on the deck, guitar in lap. For Dad, he said, strumming a melody soft and searching. I sat beside, head on his shoulder, the notes weaving our tapestry. Shock to sorrow, betrayal to bond. The Rockies loomed eternal, indifferent witnesses, but in their shadow we found grace. Not perfection, but profound enough to call home. Winter's grip tightened that year, turning the Front Range into a postcard of isolation. Blizzards sealing roads, forcing Ethan and me into a cocoon of forced proximity that tested every seam we'd mended. The cabin became our fortress, wood smoke curling from the chimney like prayers against the cold. Morning started with frost-laced windows, Ethan's arms slung heavy over my waist, his breath-warm rhythms on my neck. We'd linger there, tracing lazy patterns on skin, the world outside a white hush that made time elastic. This, he'd murmur, nuzzling closer. This is the real trail. I'd laugh, soft, pulling him in deeper, because in those stolen hours, the grief's edge dulled to something bearable. But morning isn't linear. It's a rogue wave crashing when least expected. Ethan's dad's absence echoed in the small voids. The empty chair at the breakfast table during our video calls with his mom, the unplugged guitar in the corner gathering dust. One February night, after a campus queer alliance panel where we spoke on family reconciliation, he unraveled. We'd come home buzzing, applause still ringing, questions fielded with hard-won candor. But the drive soured when a radio eulogy for some rancher icon hit too close. "Pull over," he said, voice brittle, and we did, engine ticking on a pullout overlooking iced Boulder Creek. He bolted out, slamming the door, fists pounding the hood in a rhythm of rage and release. I followed, wrapping arms around his heaving back. He never said it outright. He gasped, snowflakes melting on his lashes. Proud. But I felt it at the end. Why does that make it hurt more? We sank to the bumper, him sobbing into my coat, me rocking us both against the wind's howl. Betrayal revisited. Not of flesh but of fate, the what-ifs of unspoken words. Spring semester taught us incrementally. We co-taught a seminar on sustainable trails, our synergy electric, me handling the ecology slides, him demoing knots with that rope-burn grace. Students ate it up, dubbing us the dynamic duo, oblivious to the undercurrent. Off hours we explored. Backcountry skis into Indian Peaks, where powder muffled our whoops, or lazy afternoons at the Pearl Street Farmers Market, fingers laced under the stalls, sampling goat cheese and plotting escapes. Romance wove through the mundane. A picnic at Settlers Park where he blindfolded me for a surprise, leading to a meadow ringed with columbine, a thermos of spiked cider waiting. To surprises, he toasted, eyes twinkling with that old mischief. We made love under the open sky, slow and reverent, the betrayal's scars fading to faint lines on our map. Yet conflict simmered, insidious as groundwater. Ethan's mom, adrift in the ranch's vast quiet, leaned harder, weekly visits turning monthly, her pleas laced with loneliness. "The hands are good boys, but it's not the same without you," she'd say over pot roast, eyes darting to me with polite frost. I played the good sport, chopping wood or mending fences, but the subtext stung. Outsider, interloper in their legacy. One June weekend it boiled over. She'd invited his sister and her new beau, a bronc rider with a jaw like chiseled granite, turning the gathering into an inadvertent audition. Dinner devolved into shop talk, hay yields, cattle prices, Ethan drawn in despite himself, his laughter too loud, his glances at me too fleeting. After, in the guest room, I confronted it low. "You're slipping back. For her." He bristled, whispering fierce. "It's not slipping. It's surviving. She's all I have left." The argument escalated, words like avalanches, my accusation of codependency, his of selfishness. "You think this is easy?" he shot back, voice cracking. "Balancing ghosts and us?" I stormed to the porch, stars indifferent overhead, the shock of fresh brews, love's labor not lost but labored. Reconciliation came ragged, at dawn over coffee on the swing where his dad once sat. "I'm scared," he admitted, mug trembling, "of losing the last thread to him, to who I was." I knelt before him, hands on knees. "You won't. But don't lose us threading it." We cried then, messy and mending, sealing with a kiss that tasted of resolve. Summer followed, a deliberate pivot. We sublet the cabin, road-tripping the Great Divide route in a rattling camper van. Yellowstone's geysers to Teton's spines, campsites our confessional. In Wyoming's wilds, away from familial gravity, Ethan shed the weight. We'd wake to bison silhouettes, brew tea on a whisper-quiet stove, then hike till legs quaked, collapsing in laughter over summit snacks. One night in Grand Teton, under a meteor frenzy, he carved our names into a fallen aspen, subtle not scarring, whispering, "Anchors." Romance peaked there, emotional and unhurried, our bodies mapping forgiveness in the tense glow. Fall brought new heights and heights bring drops. We landed a joint grant. Monitoring peregrine falcons in the Garden of the Gods. Weeks based in Colorado Springs. The red rock formation's a surreal contrast to our alpine norm. The work was grueling. Dawn climbs up sheer faces, spotting scopes trained on Aries, but intoxicating, Ethan's passion reigniting like strike anywhere flint. Look at her dive. He'd breathe, binoculars pressed to eyes, and I'd watch him equally rapt. Evenings in a Springs motel, takeout ties spread on the bed, we debrief. Fledgling counts, raptor politics. It was our honeymoon phase unmarred, until the call from his aunt spilling tea over speaker. Your ma's selling the ranch. Can't handle it alone. The van swerved as Ethan processed, pulling over at a vista where Pikes Peak pierced clouds. Selling, he echoed hollow. She didn't say. The drive back was autopsy. Piecing her silences, the visits that masked desperation. We arrived to chaos. Realtor signs staked like claims, boxes half-packed in the barn. His mom greeted us tearful, apologies tumbling. It's too much, Ethan. The debt, the winters. I thought you'd take it, but with your life now. The ellipsis was us, unspoken. Conflict crested that night. Family dinner a farce. Aunties clucking, cousins offering advice on city living. Ethan snapped midway, fork clattering. This was his dream, not mine. I can't just step in because he's gone. Silence blanketed the table, his mom's face crumpling. I squeezed his thigh under the oak slab, anchor in the storm, but the shock rippled, betrayal from circumstance stripping choices bare. We fled to the river at dusk, waders on, fly rods whipping arcs against the current. Casting eased him, the lines whisper a therapy. What if I want parts of it? He mused, hooking a trout that gleamed silver. The land, not the lies. I reeled in my own catch, gutting it later by firelight. Then claim them. On your terms. Dawn brought decision. He wouldn't buy, but he'd consult. Sustainable grazing plans, ecotourism tweaks. Keeping threats without the noose. His mom hugged him fierce, me included this time, her whisper grateful. Thank you for him. Humanistic grace. The slow unfurling of acceptance. Winter circled again, but softer. We hosted her in Boulder. Thanksgiving with the Alliance crew, Tofurkey and all, laughter thawing old frosts. Ethan's stories flowed freer. Grief alchemized to gratitude. One snowy eve as we shoveled the cabin drive, he paused, breath clouding. Jake, you've been my belay. Through every slip. I grinned, snowball in hand. And you're mine. Always. We wrestled then, tumbling into drifts, the Rockies cradling our joy. Dramatic falls redeemed by deeper climbs. Yet the arc bent toward climax once more. Spring's fury mirroring our own. A class reunion hike, full group, nostalgia-laced, turned fateful when a storm mirroring our first trapped us on Lawn Lake's moraine. Hail pelted, wind sheared. And in the lee of a cairn, Ethan clutched my hand, eyes wild. Remember the rope? He yelled over gusts. I nodded, the shock of that day flashing. Lightning cracked, illuminating faces. Sarah's nod of solidarity, Harlan's gruff hold fast. But it was Ethan's grip that grounded. As skies cleared, rainbow arching the pass, he pulled a small box from his pack. Not proposal but promise, a braided cord bracelet, falcon feather woven in. For the dives ahead. Tears mixed with rain on my cheeks. We kissed amid cheers, the group our witness. Summer sealed it, a grant extension to Alaska's Brooks Range. Caribou migrations, endless light. The wild stripped us raw. Blizzards in July, grizzly tracks shadowing camp. There, in a tent battered by Aurora's glow, Ethan confessed the last shadow. I wrote him letters. Dad. After. Never sent, but it helped. I traced his jaw. Share one. He did, voice steady, words of love and letting go. Romance deepened, emotional intimacy our summit. Bodies and souls aligned, no veils left. Back in Colorado, Fall's palette framed our future. Adjunct teaching gigs, a shared lease on a Pearl Street walk-up. Betrayal's echoes? Faint as old trails, overgrown with trust. One All Souls night, we hiked to our overlook, lanterns bobbing. To shocks that sparked us, Ethan toasted, flask passed. The stars approved, vast and validating. In America's heartland wilds, we'd forged a humanism hard-won. Love not as fairy tale, but as fierce flawed endurance. Autumn's blaze gave way to winter's hush once more. But this time, the snow felt like a benediction, soft landings after the summer's soaring highs. Ethan and I had carved out a nook in Boulder's bustle. A second-floor apartment above a bookstore on Pearl, shelves groaning with dog-eared Kerouac and dog-eared dreams of our own. Mornings blurred into a symphony of small intimacies, him journaling by the bay window, steam rising from his mug as I scrambled eggs in the galley kitchen, radio murmuring NPR's latest on climate accords. "Read me something," I'd say, plating breakfast, and he'd oblige, his voice a gravelly timbre reciting trailside poetry from some obscure zine. It was romance rendered domestic, the kind that sneaks up and settles deep, rooting against the gales of doubt. Grief's tendrils still tugged, though subtler now. Ethan's mom's visits evolved into weekends of tentative bonding, her teaching me sourdough starters, me showing her the Alliance's pride floats in storage. "You're good for him," she confided one afternoon, kneading dough while Ethan napped off a patrol shift. "Steady like the mountains." Her words mended something in me, the outsider's ache easing to belonging. But family lore carried barbs. Over pie one night, she shared stories of his dad's youth. A closeted cowboy, furtive glances at rodeo hands, a marriage built on Midwest stoicism. "He loved fierce but quiet," she said, eyes distant. Ethan stiffened across the table, fork pausing. "Wish he'd said it louder." The confession hung, a bridge from pain to understanding, but it stirred old conflicts, the inherited silence we'd both battled. Spring semester ramped up, our lives a juggle of lectures and lab hours, fieldwork pulling us to the San Juans for a water quality survey. The drive west was therapy. Winding through Black Canyon, radio blasting Springsteen, Ethan's hand drumming my thigh to Thunder Road. Camped along the Onimus, we sampled riffles at dusk, nets scooping macroinvertebrates under fading light. "Look, stonefly nymph," he crowed, holding it aloft like treasure. Laughter echoed off canyon walls as we tallied data by headlamp, but nightfall brought vulnerability. Stars wheeled overhead, the river's murmur a confessor, and Ethan turned pensive. "What if we fail? Not us but the fight. Climate writes all of it." I pulled him close, sleeping bag unzipped into a quilt. "Then we recalibrate. Like this, adapt, endure." Our kiss was salt and shirty, bodies aligning in the chill. Love's drama played soft against the wild's indifference. Back east, tension brewed from unexpected quarters. The university's outdoor club, once our neutral ground, hosted a alumni mixer, beers at the Dark Horse, tales swapped of epic traverses. Ethan and I arrived arm-in-linked, casual but clear, only to face a table of old ranch hands, his dad's former crew, invited by some well-meaning professor. Their greetings were hearty slaps, but eyes narrowed at our ease. "Heard about the old man," one drawled, a tobacco-chewing vet named Cal. "Tough break. You stepping up, kid?" Ethan's jaw ticked. "Not like that. Got my own path." The table quieted, beers sipped slow until Cal leaned in, voice low. "Path or not, blood's blood. Don't forget where you come from." The words landed like a sucker punch, betrayal from brotherhood, the ranch's ghost haunting even here. We left early, the walk home a debrief, my rage at their presumption, his simmer of shame. "It's like I'm branded," he muttered, keys jingling. "Hayseed queer forever." We channeled it into action. A panel at the next Queer Hike series, Navigating Legacies, where Ethan spoke raw on reconciling roots and rainbows. The room, 40 strong, diverse as the trails, leaned in, nods rippling. Sarah moderated, her questions gentle probes. I sat front row, pride swelling. Afterward, a kid approached, barely 18, voice quaking. "My folks are ranchers too. This helps." Ethan's hug was brotherly, but his glance at me said it all, worth the wounds. Romance followed in the afterglow. A midnight picnic on campus, blankets spread under the ponderosis, wine and whispers till security's flashlight swept by. Summer's heat wave baked the plains, but we escaped north to the winds, cirque of the towers, granite cathedrals guarding alpine lakes. The approach was brutal. 14 miles of boulder hop and creek cross, packs heavy with bear cans and hubris. At base camp, Ping Pong Lake, a gem amid moraine, we shed layers, diving nude into the meltwater's bite. Surfacing gasping, Ethan splashed me, grin wicked. "Race to the far shore?" We stroked across, emerging triumphant, toweling on sun-warmed slabs. That afternoon we bagged Wolf's Head, the scramble airy and exposed, 1,000-foot drops yawning beside handholds. At the summit, wind-scoured and vast, he pulled me into an embrace that defied gravity. "This is us," he yelled over the gale. Teetering but together. The descent was euphoric, adrenaline fueling a camp dinner of ramen laced with optimism. Climax loomed on the return, a freak microburst slamming the cirque. Winds to 60, rain horizontal. We hunkered in the tent, stakes straining. Ethan's arm my anchor as thunder rolled. "Hold on," he murmured, echoing that first storm, but now it was mantra, not plea. The squall passed, leaving rainbows in its wake, but damage tallied. A twisted ankle for me, sprained on slick talus. The hobble out was epic, him shouldering both packs, me limping on his improvised splint. At the trailhead, medevac unnecessary but gratitude profound. We collapsed in the van, ice packs and ibuprofen our spoils. "My hero," I teased, but meant it bone deep. He kissed my forehead. "Partners, remember?" Fall's equinox marked a pivot. Ethan's thesis defense. A masterwork on resilient ecosystems, drawing profs from Denver to Fort Collins. I sat beaming as he fielded questions, his passion a beacon. Post-defense beers at Mountain Sun turned celebratory. Toasts to futures unfurling. But conflict nipped at heels. A job offer for him. Lead interpreter at Rocky Mountain National Park. Full-time with relocation to Estes Village. "It's perfect," he said, eyes alight. "But it's us in the mix." My grant was boulder-tied, a 2-hour commute over Trail Ridge Pass. Doable but daunting in blizzards. "We adapt," I echoed our tent talk, but doubt flickered. Was this the betrayal's sly return, ambition pulling strings? We deliberated over hikes. Brainerd Lakes loops, crunching leaves underfoot. "Estes means more time on the line," he argued. "Rangers, outreach, real impact." I nodded, weighing my urban ties. And I'd commute. For us. Tension simmered, nights tangled but taut. Then epiphany on a fogged Mount Audubon. "Hybrid," he proposed, breath clouding. "I take it. You consult remote, weekends merge." Relief cascaded, our high five echoing. Humanistic compromise, the stories weave tightening. Winter solstice brought ritual. A cabin return, his mom's quilt spread by the tree, lights twinkling. Ethan strung a playlist, Dylan to Brandy Carlisle, and we danced slow, bodies swaying to the story. "To shock survived," he whispered, lips brushing ear. Outside, snow fell, fat flakes, the Rockies slumbering. Romance crested, emotional. No grand gestures, but a letter from him slipped under my pillow. Pages of our arc, from rope to resolve. I read by firelight, tears blurring ink, then pulled him down. Love's language unspoken but profound. Spring's thaw mirrored renewal. My ankle healed, we led a youth group trek. LGBTQ plus teens, packs light with hope. Their questions poured. "How'd you know? What about family?" Ethan's answers, honed by fire-lit paths. One kid, shy with braces, hugged us at trail's end. "You make it seem possible." We drove home, spent but soaring, the betrayal's shadow long banished. Summer sealed legacies. Wedding his mom off to a quiet widower. A courthouse affair with cake and cows lowing approval. "To new trails," she toasted, glass clinking mine. Ethan teared up, the circle closing gentle. Our own milestone. A commitment ceremony, small alliance friends, Sarah officiating, vows exchanged on Chautauqua Meadow. Rings simple tungsten etched with peaks. "I belay you," he said, voice steady. "Through every storm." Kisses sealed it, cheers rising, the flatirons nodding. Fall's harvest moon framed reflection. Adjuncts thriving, weekends in Estes blending lives. Conflict? Mere eddies now, navigated with grace. One crisp hike to Gem Lake, lanterns bobbing. Ethan paused at a viewpoint. "Think he'd be proud? Of us, the man." I squeezed his hand. "He is. Watching." Stars wheeled witness, America's wild heart affirming. Love, dramatic and deep, endures. The years that followed folded into a tapestry of tempered triumphs. Each season a stitch in the fabric of us. Ethan and Jake, trailblazers of our own uncharted paths. By 25, the apartment had evolved into a proper nest. Bookshelves bowed under field guides and photo albums, a wall calendar marked with ranger rotations and my consulting gigs. Mornings still hummed with ritual. Coffee brewing as Ethan sketched patrol routes, me reviewing data sets on my laptop, but now laced with the quiet confidence of shared history. We'd glance across the Formica counter, a smile sparking memories. That rope's bite, the ranch's reckoning, the wind's whoops. Love you, he'd say, casual as slipping on boots, and I'd echo it, the words worn smooth as river stone. Work wove our worlds tighter. Ethan's role at the park ballooned, coordinating youth programs, his voice on local NPR dissecting fire ecology with that ranch-bred drawl. I joined for overnights, crashing in the staff bunkhouse, joining dawn patrols where elk bugled in the mist. My own path forked into advocacy, partnering with queer outdoor nonprofits, leading workshops on inclusive access, trails for all. We'd brand it, Ethan guesting with not demos that had participants in stitches. Successes stacked. A grant for accessible boardwalks, a feature in Outside Mag profiling, the couple redefining wild. But acclaim carried undercurrents. Interviews probed our origin story. The shock's shadow romanticized. It was messy, Ethan would demur on air. But mess makes strength. Off mic he'd squeeze my hand. Ours, not theirs. Family fronts steadied, humanistic in their hum. His mom thrived in her remarriage, the new ranch a hobby farm near Craig. Goats and gardens, her letters chatty with updates and invites. We'd visit quarterly, the drive a pilgrimage. I-70 east, then north on deer-flecked byways. Dinners now flowed easy. His stepdad, a retired forester named Tom, trading war stories over venison, her eyes crinkling at our banter. You boys built something, she'd say, clearing plates, and Ethan would blush, the betrayal's ghost exorcised to faint echo. My own clan warmed gradual. Mom hosting brunches in her Lakewood bungalow, Dad's gruff proud of ya, after a pride hike recap. No fanfare but the inclusion, a seat at Passover, a nod over beers, felt like victory's quiet cousin. Conflict, when it stirred, came external, societal barbs glancing off our armor. A park budget cut threatened Ethan's program. We rallied, petitions, town halls, his passion a bellows to my strategy. Victory came narrow, a compromise funding, celebrated with a backcountry campout, esmeraldas and stargazing, his head on my lap as we named constellations after our scars. Betrayal butte, he'd quip, tracing Orion's belt. Laughter healed deeper than lectures. Romance sustained in eddies. Anniversary treks to our spots, Bear Lake for the hook, Flat Top for the fall, picnics packed with his jerky, my playlists. One July 4th, atop Hallett, fireworks blooming distant over Loveland. He slow danced me under the Milky Way, whispers weaving vows renewed. Still shocked? He teased, lips grazing collarbone. Every day. I'd breathe, pulling closer, emotional fire banked but blazing. Climax crested unexpectedly, mid-30s, in a storm of legacy and loss. Ethan's mom called one August dawn, voice frayed. Tom's had a stroke. Bad. We dropped everything, the drive a blur of podcasts to steady nerves. The hospital in Craig was a time warp, beeping halls, fluorescent hum. Tom pale in the ICU, her hand dwarfed in his. He lit up talking about your hikes, she said, tears carving tracks. Ethan nodded, throat working, but I saw the mirror. His dad's vigil roles reversed. Days blurred into vigils, me fetching coffees, him reading aloud from Tom's dog-eared Steinbeck. Recovery was grueling. Rehab in Denver, us shuttling weekends, the apartment commandeered for physiomats and morale boosts. Tension tautened. Ethan's exhaustion spilling into snaps, my worry manifesting as hovering. I need space, he confessed one night, slumped on the couch, to grieve what might not come back. The word stung, an echo of old pulls, but I stepped back, brewing tea in silence. Betrayal? No boundary, the hard love of letting breathe. Healing hinged on a whim. A family trip to the ranch, Tom's first outing post-stroke. We loaded a trailer, wheelchair ramps, picnic gear, hauling to the old spread, now leased but lingering. Under aspen shade by the creek we fished. Ethan and Tom casting tandem lines, arcing grace. Laughter bubbled when Tom hooked a brookie. His gotcha! Slurred but triumphant. His mom teared up beside me, whispering, "This is mending." Evening fire crackled stories. Tom's logging days, Ethan's toddler escapades. The circle hole, ghosts welcomed but not haunting. Driving back, Ethan gripped the wheel, eyes bright. Thanks for holding the line.
I leaned over, kissing knuckles.
Always. Summer's end brought pivot. Tom stabilized, we refocused. Ethan pitching a park-wide legacy trails initiative, honoring queer pioneers in conservation. I co-authored the proposal, weaving narratives of hidden histories. Funding flowed, groundbreaking a path near Moraine Park. Plaques etched with stories like ours. Dedication day dawned crisp, crowd gathered. Rangers in crisp, families picnicking. Ethan spoke, voice carrying. Trails aren't just dirt. They're choices, forward despite the slips. Applause thundered. Afterward, a teen from our workshops hugged us, bracelet matching ours. Romance followed, private. A secluded camp on the new trail, tent pitched at dusk, his fingers tracing my palm. Our mark, he murmured. Love, ever the climber, scaled new heights, deep dialogic, defying erosion. Winters softened with age, 30s bleeding to 40s, our lines etching like tree rings. Crow's feet from squinting at horizons, silver threading temples. We mentored. Adjunct advising, Ethan guiding fledglings through belay fears, me facilitating panels on resilient love. Conflicts. Petty now, commute squabbles grant deadlines, but dispatched with humor, a raised eyebrow over wine. Remember the cirque? Laughter dissolved them. Family expanded tangential. His sister's kids, towhead terrors, visiting for Uncle Ethan camps, me teaching constellations while he whittled wands. You're naturals, his mom beamed. The humanism full circle, generations bridged, not burdened. Climax's echo faded to coda, but one final shock rippled. A letter postmarked Steamboat from his dad's old lawyer. Bequest, it read. A parcel of ranchland, 10 acres by the Yampa, deeded to Ethan and his partner in perpetuity. We drove up stunned, the plot a riverside idyll. Cottonwoods shading a cabin shell, elk prints fresh in mud. He planned this. Ethan whispered, tracing fence posts. The will's note scrawled, build your own. Proud. Tears came unbidden. The ultimate absolution. Betrayal transmuted to bequest. We restored it slow. Weekends hammering beams, solar panels glinting. Christmases there became tradition. Mom and Tom toasting by the hearth, kids romping snow. By 50, the Rockies remained our constant, trails trod familiar but fresh. Retirement loomed gentle. Ethan consulting part-time, me writing a memoir. Roped in. A gay love on the divide. Chapters spilled over cabin porches. Romance endured, romantic if reimagined. Porch swings at sunset. Hands clasped against chill. Stories retold with new inflections. Shocked still, he'd ask, eyes twinkling. Utterly, I'd reply, leaning in, the hook eternal. Ending humanistic, no tidy tragedy or triumph, but textured truth. Love as the long haul, dramatic in its dailies, suspense in its seasons. We hiked that final unnamed ridge at 60, knees creaking but spirits soaring. The abyss below, a testament to leaps taken. Hand in hand, peaks conquered, we turned homeward, shocked, yes, but saved by the climb. In America's beating wild heart, we'd found not just each other, but the grace to keep going, one step, one story, forever.